We are going live. And we are going full screen. And we are live. Going to turn the volume down, get the super chat up, and then we'll get started. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Down the Middle. This will be a fun one. Not too serious, but we've dubbed this the time capsule. So we're going to go through and look at different wrestling companies that are out there today, and we're going to predict where they're going to be in a year. And then next year, we're going to go through this again and see where we were right and where we were wrong. Feel free to weigh in the comments section, but before we get into that, I know Ben's going to want to gloat about something, so go ahead.
I was going to be nice today, and be fair, but okay, if you want me to gloat, I'll be gloating. As everybody knows or doesn't know, this past Thursday, was it?
Yep.
This past Thursday, we decided to have a little video game tournament for the All Events Welcome Championship. There's Mr. here, right there, was well over his 30 days.
Hey, we voted. We agreed on the extension.
Hold on. He's well over his 30 days, but we decided to give an extension. Then we still had to figure out about him defending it. See, I'm being fair about this.
Yeah, I was not unwilling to defend it. Scheduling was a problem.
I never said you wasn't. I'm just saying complications happen with other people in our group and everything else. So we used to have a little video game round robin tournament at our local video game establishment, arcade, and they all decided to do Mortal Kombat, which was the worst idea that they could ever do, considering I'm the Mortal Kombat expert. And,
I figured we might have a shot with it being the old school arcade.
No,
I was wrong. I was wrong.
And in doing so, Mr. here, who was the said champion, and our other cohort, Eric, which is on their podcast, Average Intelligence Podcast. Please check them out. I beat him for the All Events Welcome Championship. Right there.
And I don't think beat really paints a good enough picture. I mean, I got destroyed. I lost in spectacular fashion. Yes, just like in Uno. I lost. I will give you this. Every time you win the title, you win it's not even close.
No. Last time I won the title was the chance of a coin flip.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'll give you that.
So, but when I defended against you guys in Uno, then I beat you. Yeah. And should I go ahead and make the?
I was going to say you already have a challenger. Yep.
Okay. So somebody who's not in our little set group, who's in my group of wrestlers with XCW, does watch our podcast and does check us out and everything, and he likes the idea of wanting to win my title here. So we will figure out a date, set time, and everything, and our lovely commissioner, who you are right now, will be there to film said event, and we'll be doing 18 rounds of miniature golf. So, yes, I know that sounds a little cockeye, but everything we do on this is cockeye.
It is we do all events welcome.
Right. So I have been challenged for my said title in around 18 holes of miniature golf. So we will do that in the next month. They said 30-day challenge defense.
Yep. We will do there. And then there's another announcement that we're going to make, but I'm going to leave that till the end, so you have to listen. And it is a big announcement and a fun announcement. So, but I digress. We'll go right into it, and I want to start again because I want to make sure everyone listens to everything. So we're going to start with the smaller companies and then go up to the big dogs. So I wanted to start with MLW. Where do you think they're going to be in about a year?
Right now, I mean, I'm worried about them right now because, I mean, right now, okay, up until here recently, they were doing amazing and fantastic with, especially with this whole new storyline with trying to revive Lucha Underground and everything.
I did not know
Because
that.
yes, is it Dario Cortez, the owner of Lucha Underground?
The
I
the
couldn't.
uh, the 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 work owner or the shoot owner?
Oh well, what the guy you saw on TV?
Oh,
I
Dario Cueto. That's a character. That's not even the guy's real name. Oh, kayfabe. My bad. And by the way, his dad took over.
oh okay. Well, I haven't watched really Lucha Underground a lot since like the first season of it, so that my bad. I apologize.
Oh no,
But
I love Lucha Underground. I'd love for it to come back. I didn't know they were trying to revive it.
well, they were doing like a little um like trying to do a little offshoot co-promotion type thing, Lucha Underground. Um, but here recently, like they're losing their steam with a lot of their workers, especially going to like the varsity bonds are now out of their contracts with MLW, now fully signed with AEW.
Yeah, well, I'll be to be fair on that. Those guys were always gonna go to AEW. I mean, particularly Brian Pillman Jr. I saw him in AEW. I mean, I'm sorry, I saw him in MLW, and I'm like, he must be under contract because it's only a matter of time before he gets out. I mean, just on name value alone, he's going to get signed somewhere. And plus the fact too, he's good. Like he's not bad in the ring.
Right. And I don't know if he was still signed at the time, but the news came out. Well, today's what, the 17th? No, 18th.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, this is July 18th, and news came out this past week that not David Hart Smith, but Harry Smith, who is a big name for MLW, just worked a dark match for WWE.
Oh, so he's coming back. Yeah.
So I'm like, I think, especially WWE going back on the road and everything, a lot of people from MLW are going to like, hey, maybe we want to try to get signed again. As they did make the announcement, I'm not trying to go too far into this, that because earlier in the year, they froze like, for pay raises and promotions and all that for people. Now they're going back on the road. Now they unfroze that.
Who's this, WWE?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I figure MLW, I think, because you're right, they were doing pretty well for what they are, but I think the pandemic really hurt the smaller companies. Really, really hurt. But MLW was in an interesting position because, I mean, pre-pandemic, they had some really decent names signed to them, but then when the pandemic happened, they couldn't really, promote events. So a lot of those guys were allowed to go work elsewhere, even if they were under contract. I believe Brian Pillman Jr. was one of them.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why he was. Yeah, he did what local independence was running. I mean, not during the big time of the pandemic, but like, especially recently, like within the last few months, plus AW and everything else, because they've got Daly's place, so they can do the whole work in their little arena, just like Impact does with theirs. So that's why I'm saying, like, yeah.
Yep.
But if I think MLW can get a stride back, they just got to get that right formula again of, especially when they start touring again, per se, with their shows.
Yeah, well, some notable pieces of news is MLW is now streaming on DAZN, DAZN, which, I mean, that's it's a new platform, but it's pretty big, so that could lead somewhere. And then I also read that they have a working relationship with RevPro now in the UK. That's relatively new. I think that was back in April that they kind of put pen to paper on that.
Okay.
but they're just now able to start doing shows. So, so where do you think they'll be in a year?
I think they'll be at the same. I'm not saying they would just stay in their same spot. I think they're going to try to get higher. I'm not saying they'll be bigger than the NWA or anything. I'm not downing the NWA either, because I know, like, we look at company standpoints and everything else. I know everybody's going to say WWE's number one. We'll just go with this. WWE's one, AEW's two.
I say New Japan. I just say New Japan is a strong number 3, and then everybody else is kind of.
Well, I'm not going to count Japan. I'm just counting United States. Okay.
That's okay.
Okay. I don't mean to offend anybody else when I say this. I'm not counting Japan, because I know Japan is in the United States too, but it doesn't have that strong presence yet. Still here yet. Okay. It's WWE, then AEW. Then I'm going to go with Impact.
Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. Now, yeah, I'd agree with that.
I'm going with Impact. NWA and Ring of Honor are going to be tied for 4th. That's what I feel, because they're right there neck and neck, especially since NWA is making that strong feel of coming back, and then MLW is right underneath them.
Yep.
That's what I'm feeling. That's what I'm saying. And with Evolve gone, because WWE bought Evolve and it's pretty much dismantled it now, because everybody works with Evolve.
Evolve is the new NXT.
Well, no. That's the thing, is like Evolve was the developmental for NXT.
Yeah, I know.
That's what I'm saying. And since Evolve is now gone and everything, because I'm from the time period where Evolve and Dragon Gate USA here in the United States was like the big go-to companies to want to work for, and then hit your strides in companies like Chikara and Combat Zone Wrestling. And then once you go with those, then you can go to WWE or TNA and stuff like Ring of Honor, stuff like that. That's what I'm looking at this as. MLW will still be big, like right behind them, because everybody's going to go for MLW, and once everybody knows you got that stride of you've worked for MLW type of thing, then like, okay, you worked MLW, now you can come to one of us.
Right.
So I'm not saying MLW could be the strong company. I mean, they got to have the big money backing to be a strong money company. But I feel, and they could take offense to this, and I'm sorry, but MLW to me is going to be a developmental company to the big time.
I think you're going to see MLW become a farm system for AEW.
Well, maybe not just AEW.
Not just, but I think it's going to be, like, I don't think they're going to have an exclusive deal, but I think you're going to see a lot of wrestlers that do well in MLW end up coming to AEW more than anywhere else.
Well,
like there'll be an unofficial OVW type developmental place for AEW. And AEW's got a better recruitment system, because basically they've got 2 shows that's main purpose is to showcase new talent, that being Dark and Dark Elevation. Now, Dark Elevation seems to be more about showcasing newer AEW signed talent, and Dark seems to be more emphasized on showing like talent you may or may not have seen before, as far as the showcase of it.
And you're right, that's fine and everything, but I'm just worried about, because here's my thing about all that. They can't really, because they didn't make they didn't technically make this announcement, but I'm just worried for all the people that, like, you know how they're at Daly's place, and there are a lot of these new indie people,
right,
like Fuego and everybody else, and we've had this little conversation about being on Dark and Dark Elevation. Well, they can't really take all those people with them now, because now they're touring.
No, but they will be able to. So you'll see more local independent people, And who's to say that, like, okay, let's say where's MLW out of? Are they in Tampa?
Well, Florida area, yes.
Yeah, they're
I
in the
don't know
Florida area.
where, but it's in Florida.
So, but what my point being is, like, okay, let's say if AEW is doing a show in Georgia, for example, you're still going to be able to have MLW talent come be on the show because it's, as far as I understand it, it's basically like, hey, we're going to be here if you'd like to be on Dark, like, come on out, and if not, we've got local talents we can throw in there.
Sure.
I mean, I assume they schedule the card ahead of time, so I would think that travel arrangements would have already been made. And are they still doing it where they have independent wrestlers come to the crowd first, like they were doing in the pandemic?
I do not know for sure.
Like, that's how Pineapple Pete kind of got over, but he hasn't really been around.
I think that's pretty much done, especially with them letting fans back in and everything else, that they don't really have to do the whole. I don't really want to give too much thing around, even though everybody knows it. Too much. I don't think they want to put too much workers in the crowd anymore.
Because they want to sell tickets.
Right. So I think because now the pandemic era is not over.
It's done. It's done. It's over.
Right, done, but it's done, so they don't really have to worry about doing that no more. So it's just going to be fans in the crowd.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Alrighty. So, yeah, I think that's... in closing with MLW, I kind of agree with what you said, where I think they're pretty much going to be... They're going to be in better standing, but they're pretty much going to be in the same position. But I think they're going to... And I think they should kind of switch gears and think more so about becoming more of a developmental territory rather than trying to get into the big time right now.
Like OVW.
Yeah, but I mean, they can be bigger than OVW because I think OVW's long-term fault was that they focused too much on being a feeder system. Now, part of that wasn't their fault because when they were the official training ground for WWE held them back immensely.
Well, and they're developmental for TNA as well.
Yeah.
And that was just like another company way back in the day, and that was HWA, Heartland Wrestling Association, out of Cincinnati. That's what they were, is the developmentals for big time companies like WCW and everything else. So that's what a company like them is going to be, because OVW, they're still going, they're still on TV and everything. So it's like, go to OVW, you've known that you've been on TV and everything, and then you try to want to go somewhere else, especially like WWE or AEW or Ring of Honor. So, hey, I've done Ring of Honor, and not Ring of Honor. I've done OVW, been trained by them. What can we do?
Yeah, well, the other thing MLW has going for it is that it's not just a wrestling promotion; it's also the the radio and podcast. That's what they were doing for a very long time before they were running shows again.
Yeah.
So they've got that aspect going for them too. So I don't see them going under as a company, but I do see them kind of not making major strides, just because there are so many other big companies that are making major moves. I just think they're not going to be able to get a foothold in a year. They might eventually, but I just don't see that happening in the next year. All right, so moving on to the next, we got NWA. And I think we're gonna disagree on this one.
Okay, let me hear your thoughts then.
Okay, so I think NWA has been hurt by two things, one of which wasn't their fault, one was very much their fault. They were obviously hurt by the pandemic, which no control over that, and I think they did the right thing, and basically they were, from what I understand, as a company, they pretty much told their talent, listen, get work where you can, because we don't have it. Like, you're still under contract, but we're not producing shows right now, so go work. That's partially why Thunder Rosa was featured so much on AEW. Like, she was going to be anyway, but NWA wasn't doing tapings, and she was doing she really grew her independent. I think it's Mission Pro Wrestling out in Texas. She really grew that because those were basically her only two income sources while NWA was not producing shows. But the thing that they did that I think really hurt them was I think they pulled their programming off of YouTube way too early because they moved it over to the Fight app.
Right, and they're having to pay for it.
Exactly. Now, the reason I say it was a mistake, eventually, yes, you want to get there. And then also I read they're doing some weird like weekly pay-per-view thing.
That part I didn't know. I know they're doing a pay-per-view. Like it wouldn't be technically a weekly pay-per-view. If that's the case, they're doing what TNA did when they first started. They're doing like a weekly.
Yeah, I don't know what the program is. I just know that they do some sort of weekly show on some UW. I can't remember what the network was. It's an online streaming network, but anyway. But here's the only problem, like, because when NWA was on YouTube, I was watching it and I was getting invested, but I wasn't so invested. And I'm not dogging the NWA, but there's a lot of wrestling out there, and I wasn't as invested. Oh,
you weren't so invested that you got to pay the subscription price to watch it every week.
Exactly, but I was invested enough to watch every week, as long as it was easy to find and I didn't have to pay for it.
And I'm actually on your side on this. I'm not disagreeing, and everything else. I was doing the same thing. I was doing the same thing. I was invested. I'm an NWA mark. I will admit that right now. I'm a big fan of the NWA. We've had this discussion, especially on the Belts episode with Hazard F5. Go check that out, episode 7. I'm a big fan of the NWA. The NWA World Title is my favorite world title of all time, which is being held right now by the longest reigning heavyweight champion of all time, Nick Aldis. I think he's in 3 years now.
And let me just say, Nick Aldis was tailor made to be NWA champion.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Yeah. He's tailor made to be world champion. Period.
Yeah, I mean, especially when for an organization like the NWA and how it's structured, though, Nick Aldis, because I mean, he can work with anyone. Yes, and he's got that older school. Not saying he can't do like new style wrestling, but he's got that older school work style that just seems to fit really, really well with the NWA.
And that is right. Nick Aldis to me reminds me of a guy who's in WWE right now, and that's Adam Pearce. Because when I saw Adam Pearce as the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, he was gold to me. He was money. He was the epitome of what an NWA World Heavyweight Champion should be at the time he was the champion. And now there's people who've been NWA World Champion since, and I'm not dogging on Cody Rhodes. I understand why hear me out. I understand why he won the world title when they did do that thing. But Cody is not NWA material.
Ooh, I don't know about that, but
Cody's the reason why I'm saying is NWA is more old school and everything. I know NWA is trying to fit in with now. Cody's more mainstream.
Yeah, but I think Cody's work style is a little. I'm not saying he's old school, but it leans more old school than a lot of AEW wrestlers do.
Well, I was just saying, I know Cody tries to do like what his dad does and everything. I'm just saying, like, since Cody was too WWE and everything, and he was used to that and everything else, that's what I'm saying. Like, he's more mainstream compared to Nick Aldis when he was Magnus It worked TNA, and he was their world champion and everything, and he's gotten out of that. He's in the NWA. He's won the world title, and you see how he works, how he talks, how he moves, and everything. That's what an NWA world champion should be.
Yeah, I agree. I see what you're saying. So where do you think NWA will be in a year?
Okay. I see NWA trying to get higher within the next year. I'm not saying that they're going to try to do whatever they can to not be just second fiddle to other companies. I want them to strive to be the next. I want them to strive to try to be the top promotion again. But I guarantee right now, if pandemic didn't hit when it did, and they were still doing what they were doing before, I guarantee they would be higher than the Ring of Honor and Impact.
I agree. Because NWA was doing so many right things. And like I said, the pandemic was not their fault. But let's go through, like, here's what NWA was doing right. They were treating it like the old school NWA, where NWA wasn't a territory. It was a collection of territories. It was the governing body of multiple territories. And its championships were recognized pretty much anywhere. And even now, I'd say the NWA championships are recognized everywhere except WWE, and even WWE might recognize them just kind of out of nostalgia, but they're not going to be competed for on a WWE show, although wouldn't that be cool?
Well, I mean, now, no. Back in the day, it did happen.
Well, yeah, I'm talking about now.
Right, that won't ever happen.
No, it depends on if Triple H were in charge. I bet it would happen.
Right, but we'll get to that point in a little bit.
Oh yeah, but Triple H would only recognize it so he could win it.
The only world title he's never held.
Exactly. That's why he would do it. So, and let's think about this. So, I don't remember when. Oh my God, I'm blanking on his name. I don't remember when Smashing Pumpkins bought NWA. I can't remember when.
Why would you do that, Billy Corgan?
Billy Corgan. I know his name. I was blanking it. I don't remember when he bought it, but it wasn't long. It wasn't super long before they did All In, and that's one of the things they really did right. Because I'll be honest, I didn't even know NWA was still around until that match, like the scenes of that match, because I remember thinking like, and it was really cool. So here's what's awesome. Here's what's really awesome about how All In happened, because, and Impact did this a little bit with the Jericho Cruise too, but basically they were planning All In, and literally the NWA was like, wait, let's cut a promo and be like, why aren't you, like, we're here. And that's how that match got booked, because they literally were like calling out the Elite and Bullet Club and being like, hey, you're going to have the biggest independent wrestling event ever without the NWA.
Right.
And then they booked the match, and it was honestly one of the best wrestling matches I've ever seen. And I totally understand why Cody won the belt, because it put NWA back on the map from a mainstream perspective.
You're right, and I'm not disagreeing with that. But right now, you're telling me you didn't know the NWA is the thing anymore since they lost the belt to TNA?
Correct.
So you thought the NWA was dead at that point?
I knew it wasn't dead, but I didn't know they were actively doing anything.
Probably. Yeah. Oh, yeah. They were actively doing stuff. One of the best feuds, in my opinion, for that belt was Colt Cabana and Adam Pearce. They had a best of, if I remember right, it was a best of 5 or a best of 7 for the NWA World Title, and they were trading the belt back and forth. Yes, Colt Cabana was the NWA World Champion.
That kind of proves my point. Not dogging Colt Cabana. What I mean though is like, okay, so I'll use this as an example, because like, yeah, if you were already a fan of the NWA, it didn't seem like it would gone anywhere. But I'll put it this way: like, who's the current Joshi Pro champion?
Joshi Pro champion.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know.
I didn't know there's a company called Joshi Pro.
Exactly.
Oh,
If you don't know what's around,
well, but that's the thing though. Is like, well, weren't you out of wrestling at this point?
yeah. Well, not hardcore. I was just starting to get back into it.
Okay. Well, that's okay. Well, that's the thing is like during this point, between when the belt got out of TNA to when it finally went mainstream again, as the belt was a government. They were defending the belt in their territories.
Yeah.
Excuse me, in their NWA companies that they had like all over the world, and defending in Japan and everything else. And that's what I'm saying is Adam Pearce put the NWA title back on the map per se when they were defending it. Um, you know, was defending it all over the world. And like I say, Colt Cabana and Adam Pearce, their best of 5 or best of 7 series feud for the NWA World Title was one of the best feuds, and the matches they had was amazing. I dig it. I did watch them all, and their final match was a steel cage in Australia, and that match was, oh my god, bloody. But it proved that it was a NWA match. Their whole feud was. It was like back in the '80s when they were trying to fight Ric Flair or Harley Race or everything for that belt.
Oh yeah. And that's what I think. I think if the NWA is going to grow, I think they need to keep doing things like that. But part of that, again, is treating the title as though it's not locked into a specific territory, which they're not doing. But I think the key to their success is going to be they're going to have to use the bigger promotions to kind of advertise the fact that, hey, this is NWA. And if you like that, you should check us out because the title is going to be defended here in 2 weeks.
Right. Well, that's the thing though, is they don't have the little territory companies no more.
Well, they'd be starting back up after the pandemic, yeah.
The NWA they're its own promotion now. Like
right, but they defend the belt at other events, like smaller promotions. Oh,
no,
they don't.
no, like the NWA is like what's on TV, like what's on Fight and everything. That's it.
I did not know that. I thought they were still defending the belt. I mean, obviously they weren't doing it during the pandemic, but
no,
well, I think
when they started the whole YouTube thing and everything, they stopped the whole territory thing like that. Corgan got rid of a lot of belts and deactivated them because he didn't want it to feel like they're a territory thing anymore. He wanted the NWA as a whole to grow as its own company and be its own thing, like WWE, like AEW, like TNA.
Oh no, I get that. But what I'm saying is because of the pandemic, they got set back a lot between.
Because they were doing that whole stage setting thing with the crowd. But since they can do it again, they're back on track of themselves again.
Right, except that you have to pay to watch it. So I think they're going to suffer unless they change. Not saying they're going to go away, but I think they're going to suffer unless they switch gears a little bit. And I think AEW and New Japan are the gateways to keep the title relevant until they can build their own viewer base back up.
To me, I think the only reasoning why they're doing the whole payment thing right now is to pay their wrestlers and everything else till they get back into a certain state and degree, and they'll probably change back to what they were before.
Right, but my only thing is I don't think they'll get there if they require viewers to pay for it, unless they're doing extremely good programming. And like I said, I think the only way they're going to be able to keep that to where people have to pay to watch it is to use the other companies pretty much the way they have been, but emphasizing more. Because, for example, I remember when Thunder Rosa exploded in popularity when she showed up on AEW as the NWA Women's Champion.
Right.
And I think if you have Nick Aldis show up on Dynamite, maybe do something with Cody again. Maybe not Cody. Maybe he could take your pick. and Nick Aldis can do a program with just about anyone and it'll end up being good, but it's got to be high profile enough to mean something.
Right.
So I think that's going to be the key for NWA is to, if they're going to keep it on a paid platform, they need to use these other companies to drum up the interest, to get people to say like, you know what, I'd like to see that match. So like maybe if Nick Aldis showed up on Dynamite and called out, let me think here. Who could he call out? Malachi Black's busy doing something, but maybe somebody like him.
Well, see,
I'd be interested in watch that.
I get what you're saying. I do.
Yeah. All right. So, but yeah,
I will say this: they can't really call out nobody in AEW right now, because if you work for AEW, you're in a feud with somebody. I'll say that right now.
I was going to say everybody's pretty busy. Yeah. So again, much like MLW, I don't see NWA making huge gains, but I think that if they do certain things, they will rise probably to a strong number 3 or 4 in the United States and maybe 4 or 5 worldwide in a year. They'll probably continue to grow, but in a year. All right, next. This one's going to hurt. Ring of Honor.
See, that's the thing about Ring of Honor is I'm going to say Ring of Honor is one of those companies, and I'm going to compare it to TNA.
Okay, I was going to make that comparison.
Okay. And we can actually use both of them here right now. We'll just go ahead and use
Impact's next, so.
Well, okay, we'll just go ahead and use them both.
Yep.
They're the two companies that I don't think nobody thought would still be around. And one started in 2002. Actually, to be honest, no. I'm trying to think when Ring of Honor started.
2002. It was right after ECW folded.
Well, ECW folded in 2001.
Maybe it started in 2001, but I'd say as far as being the
TNA started in 2002 too, right?
I believe so.
Okay. So roughly next year will be 20 years. Something like that. We'll just say he's looking it up.
I just gotta know.
I
just gotta know. Yeah, February 23rd, 2002.
For which one?
Ring of Honor.
Okay, and TNA will be June of 2002, right?
Looking it up. Thank goodness for Google. Oh, really? It's not telling me the original. I'd have to look it up. But yeah, I think it was about 2002.
Okay. By the way, is anybody in the chat have any comments on the?
No, not right now. Not right now. I'll let you know if they do.
Okay. I was just curious as all. Yep. So I was just going to say this: both companies been around for 20 years now. But it's 2001, but next year will be 20 years. So I was just saying 20 years, 20 years. I don't think a lot of people thought that these companies would be around this long, because these companies have hit their highs, they've hit their lows, they've hit highs, lows, highs, lows. They're like
and then they've hit the, I don't know if they're going to be on next week.
Well, that's the thing is, Ring of Honor and TNA are the defining moments of wrestling. And yeah, they might do some stupid stuff. They might do amazing stuff. But unless something big happens to where neither one company can run, they're not going to die. The only way they're going to die is if somebody buys them out. That's the only reason why.
I wouldn't go that far.
No. That's what I'm saying. Like these companies are going to be. I want them to get higher than what they're at. I do, especially with Ring of Honor's focal point when it comes to them is just they got the YouTube and everything else. They've tried to do TV. If for some reason TV does not work for them.
I think it's the nature of their TV. Because, I mean, they still do TV. It's just hard to find.
Well, they do TV out in the Philadelphia, Maryland area, because that's where Ring of Honor is in Philadelphia, is in Pennsylvania.
Well, yeah, but I mean, they Sinclair Broadcasting is the largest syndicated television.
But the network that Sinclair owns, we don't have here in the Midwest.
Well, I know, but that's why you have local affiliates, but they're on at weird times.
Well, even then, like, and no, you're right on that, because there was times where it was like, there was one point in the morning, at like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, there was Ring of Honor on.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Okay. I'm like, wait a minute, where'd this come from? Ring of Honor's on at like 2 o'clock in the morning?
Right. And I'm actually looking up where we can watch on TV if you want to watch Ring of Honor, because you can. Oh, okay. Ring of Honor does not currently air on any channels near you, but you can still watch Ring of Honor Mondays at 7 p.m. on Fight TV, which, again, I don't think that's pay. I think that's free. But, again,
some it depends on what it is.
I think for regular Ring of Honor TV, I think that's free, or at least it used to be.
Okay. Well, see, that's my point is Ring of Honor is like the Ring of Honor is like the NWA type of thing, where they need that Strive TV.
Yeah.
To last, which they try, and everything, especially, they're okay. Here's the big time. Here's Independence. Here's Metal.
Yep.
That's what Ring of Honor is.
Yep. Well, and Ring of Honor historically has made some really, really bad decisions when it comes to talent. For example, Jim Cornette pretty much trying to starve Kevin Steen out of Ring of Honor, and then basically like not booking him. And I'm pretty sure Kevin Steen, or better known as Kevin Owens now, to this day, still holds some contempt for old Corny, because yeah, that was not a pretty thing. And then Ring of Honor was hurt immensely by the Elite leaving, as was New Japan, which we'll get into that here in a little bit. Ring of Honor can't seem. What's that?
I was going to say, we'll get well, the whole Kevin Steen thing is. And I know you talk about Jim Cornette and everything, and you praise Jim Cornette, but I know Jim Cornette is trying his hardest and everything else, because he looked because this goes back to, you know, how the NWA was striding and everything back in the, you know, mid 2000s and everything else. And when Jim Cornette was there, as Jim Cornette's old school, he was trying to make Ring of Honor feel like the NWA per se, because he's old school. Yeah. And he didn't feel like Kevin Steen looked like a legit wrestler, be a legit world champion.
Yeah, that always struck me as very odd, because, I don't know, Dusty Rhodes, Harley Race.
My point.
Yeah, that never made much sense. Jim Cornette, who don't get me wrong, I love his commentary. It's always hilarious, but I think he's just got a really weird and inconsistent, like, okay, for example, this is going to set you off, but like Jim Cornette loves Danhausen, apparently.
Right, and we've had this conversation too. Yes,
but this is the same guy. This is the same guy who has a conniption fit from the Invisible Man or the Grenade Spot in PWG.
Right, but here's the thing, though, and I even told you this, that yes, he does love Danhausen, does love the things he does, but he doesn't watch it. He's only been told about this stuff.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
He's only been told about this stuff on his podcast. He's not actually seen it.
Oh, I can't wait till he sees it.
He's refusing to see it because as soon as he sees it, then he'll go into this little conniption fit and not like it.
Ah, I didn't know he hadn't seen it. That explains it.
Yes, he gets told about it by his co-host. I think his name's Tommy.
Hawaiian Brian.
Is that who it is?
That's his. Yeah, it's. I don't remember his actual. Brian Lass, I think, is his name.
Oh, I thought his name was Tommy. I apologize. Unless it's a different host, unless he's got a new co-host now, because I think the last host he did have with him was his name was Tommy or something like that back in the day. But anyways, I digress. Hey, that was one of his favorite words too. Digress. Anyways, Cornette's too old school and everything else, and the whole thing with that is Kevin Steen's trying to tell him, hey, we're in the now. So you need to get in with the now of what wrestling is. Not the old days.
Well, and again, and Kevin Steen talks about this repeatedly. So the big thing was, so I guess when Kevin Steen got hired in Ring of Honor, Cornette was insistent that he wrestle in a singlet, which wasn't a problem because Kevin Steen even said at that point, he's like, I'd wrestled in a singlet before. I was wrestling in a t-shirt because it was more fitting to my character that I was doing on the indies. So I wrestled in a singlet for a long time in Ring of Honor and it just wasn't getting over. So then I asked them, I said, hey, can I just do the shirt because it's more my character, it's more this. Starts wrestling in a t-shirt, all of a sudden he starts building up steam and Cornette is throwing a conniption fit because then he goes into, well, he's just got to wear a t-shirt because he's fat. It's like, I mean, no, he's not fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger, but it fit his character. I mean, I've seen Kevin Steen wrestle in a singlet. It's a non-factor. But Cornette just grabbed onto that like a dog in a bone, and that was a major source of contention between them for a very, very long time.
Hell, I wrestle in a singlet, and I wrestle with a shirt on.
Exactly.
So,
like, it's not a big deal, but he just made it a huge deal. Another thing that's hurting Ring of Honor, and I'm not going to go into the why because you can Google it, but it's hurting Ring of Honor, but I totally get why they did it, is Marty Scurll is no longer with the company and no longer the booker.
Okay, well, we all know the reasoning on that one.
Yeah, we know why. We don't need to get into it. It's completely justifiable, but it's hurting the company from a creative standpoint. Now, who knows? They might get somebody even better. And Ring of Honor, I'd wager to say Ring of Honor's only saving grace right now might actually be Danhausen, but they're going to lose him so fast.
You actually think?
He's popular. I don't get it. I'm not even going to say I don't like it, but I also don't get it.
You don't like it? It's because of that one video I showed you?
No, I've looked up Danhausen. It's not my cup of tea. I don't even want to say, like, it's not that it's bad. It's just not my wrestling that I enjoy.
Okay.
I find it unnecessarily silly, but by the same token, I love Orange Cassidy. So
it's the same thing.
No, it's not the same thing.
Yes, it is.
Okay, here's the thing. I enjoy Orange Cassidy matches. I've watched a couple Danhausen matches. I'll put it this way, and this might help clarify. So Orange Cassidy eventually starts wrestling. Danhausen milks it for way too long, in my opinion. Okay,
but I've told you this before. The reason why he works the way he works is because in case something happens to him, and if something happens to, physically, he's got something he can fall back on.
Oh, no, I get it. I totally get it. I'm just saying that as far as in-ring, watching one of his matches, Have you watched any of his earlier stuff?
Yeah.
I can't
Okay.
recall any names, but like what was I saw? I watched a match he had with Orange Cassidy, and I didn't enjoy it.
I know. I said his earlier. Okay. Watch some of his earlier stuff before it becomes the face paint.
Oh, okay.
Just as Donovan Danhausen.
Okay.
Okay. He looked the reason why. The reason why he changed his light look up and everything else because he was just a typical indie wrestler.
Oh, I
Okay.
know. I'm not saying it's not working for him. There's no denying he's popular. And
Okay.
it's gonna work for him. I'm just saying it's not my cup of tea, but because it's not my cup of tea doesn't mean he should stop doing
Well,
it. It's clearly making him money.
well, no, and it is because I think I've said this to you before. Is every few I'm gonna start talking like Mortal Kombat right now because every generation. Hold on. Every generation, there's a certain group of wrestlers who's the top indie wrestlers. Okay, one group who back in the day who was the one group that was Brian Danielson, Tyler Black,
AJ Styles.
huh?
Oh, I'm sorry. AJ Styles might have been a little bit before that time as an indie wrestler.
Well, AJ Styles was technically in TNA.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, he was technically considered in that little group per se, but he was already higher because he had been in WCW. So he got his name was already out there. Plus he's in TNA and he's already been like world champion, tag, X Division, and everything else. Yada yada yada. But what I'm saying is, especially because we're talking about Ring of Honor, is you have the people like the whole Brian Danielson, Tyler Black, CM Punk, Samoa Joe, and everything. There was that group. Okay. A few years later, El Generico, Kevin Steen, Cesaro, yada yada, and all that group. and like you get a group of people who's the top indie guys every so years, and I know this is gonna piss you off. Danhausen is one of these guys.
Oh, I know. I'm not disputing that.
Okay, well there's Danhausen. There's I got Effie, Dan the Dad, Orange Cassidy, and all them. They are the now generation of guys who's on the indies. Warhorse. These are the guys who's on the indies as they're comedic characters, but yeah, they're the top guys on the indies. That's also signed to companies like Ring of Honor and everything else. Who's like, okay, we've got the name. Now we're using this name to be bigger. Everything else, and you're probably right. The reason why Ring of Honor is doing so well is because of Danhausen. You're probably right, but I think pandemic hurt them too.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And that's why they weren't smart. But now since they've had best in the world and everything else, which was in what everybody knows by now, every company is back in front of crowds.
Right, but Ring of Honor was hurting. Ring of Honor was hurting before the pandemic.
Well, they weren't not as bad, but
not as bad, but they were already on a downward. They were on a downward trajectory because, and again, this was solely because the Elite left when they did. But their big co-show War of the Worlds with New Japan at Madison Square Garden did not do as well as they were predicting because they had advertised Kenny Omega and the Bucks. They were supposed to be on that show, but they ended up leaving because they advertised the show before they had renegotiated contracts, which I get why they did it, but the show was not as well received as it was anticipated to be. Because New Japan and Ring of Honor assumed that these guys were going to re-sign, so they went ahead and advertised the show, and they didn't re-sign. So we all know how that happened.
Right. They tried. They're trying to like do a real big thing in a building that's not even theirs.
Yeah.
So it's like but again, I get why they did it because what better way to make stride of doing a big show than in one of the biggest buildings in the world United States, especially in the United
Oh
States.
no, I get it. I get it 100%. But well, like I was saying about Danhausen, he's one of the major attractions in Ring of Honor right now, but they're going to lose him so soon. As soon as his contract is up, which I believe is in April of next year, he's gone. He's probably going to AEW if I had to guess.
Well, he goes to AEW, Ice. If he goes to AEW and he gets aligned with anybody there, I know who he'll get aligned with.
Oh, I mean, but just think about what he can do with a television program like that. What they can do with him. Like, think of the promos they can do.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
but that's what I'm saying. Like, I know who he could be aligned with if he was in AEW. And I know I know you're probably going to think, oh, he'll be aligned with Orange Cassidy and all that.
No.
Who do you think I think he would be aligned with?
I think they'd be better. I think they'd be better off to keep him by himself. Personally.
Right, but nobody's by themselves.
You could put him with Malachi Black.
Okay, let's go with the face stable.
A face stable, okay. Well, we already eliminated the best friends. Would you put him in the inner circle? No. Who would you align him with if you were booking there?
Well, okay. Best friends I would see him with, one because of Orange Cassidy, but everybody's gonna hate me for this, and you're gonna hate me for this, but I feel like the brothers in paint need to be together. Darby and Sting.
Yeah. I think he's a little too comedy for them. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, I'm just saying. It's
well, but the one major prediction I will make is I think Danhausen will be in AEW next year after his contract is up.
Okay.
If somehow and if everything just goes straight to hell and ROH goes under, he'll be in AEW as soon as he can get out of Ring of Honor.
Well, it sounds to me like Dave Honor needs to get all these sacks of money and make him world champion soon.
I don't know how Ring of Honor can get out of the hole. They're going to have to do it really, really slowly. But I think one thing they need to do is continue their relationships with other companies like New Japan, like AEW, except they no longer have a working relationship with New Japan, at least unless they started that back up.
Not that I'm aware. Like they're trying to.
Yeah, but that hurt him.
Right.
Yeah, that hurt because there was no denying with that partnership, Ring of Honor was definitely the smaller company.
Right. And also going with Impact, who's obviously the next one, because that's what I was doing.
Which they're doing that, they're milking their relationship because they have a working relationship with AAA, with AEW, and with New Japan, and they're using it.
Right. And especially since right now at this time of recording, we can go ahead and talk about it. Slammiversary was the night before. I didn't watch it, but I read the results of it, and I can't. Okay. After I read the results of what happened, I'm not saying I'm a fan because of what happened. Because especially since like some people who did show up, on Slammiversary last night, I'm like, really?
Who showed up? Because I didn't read the results yet.
No way showed up.
Who?
No, exactly who?
Yeah. Oh, no way, Jose.
Yes.
Oh, who cares?
He replaced TJP because TJP got injured somehow, and he replaced him as the tag partner for Fala Bala for the tag titles. and which the Good Brothers did win, by the way.
Yeah. So they're the TNA. They're the Impact Tag Team
Right.
champions.
Who else? Chelsea Green showed up.
Oh, she did show up in Impact.
Yeah, she was the tag team partner for Matt Cardona.
Called that.
And to me, it's a little weird that Matt Cardona and his current fiance faced against his former best friend, Brian, and his ex-girlfriend, Janelle Dashwood. I'm like, it's a little weird. A little weird. The Ultimate X match, pretty good. Josh Alexander did retain that. To me, I'm not saying I'm not a fan of Josh Alexander, especially with his tag team with the North and Ethan Page. I think my opinion is Petey Williams should have won the match, or Chris Bay should have won the match as well. I'm a fan of both of them. I've known Chris Bay for a long time, especially with the whole Hazard F5 thing with the belt thing.
Yeah, get him on the show. I'm kidding.
Huh?
I'm kidding. So get him on the show.
well, no, I'm just saying, like, I met Chris Bay for the whole belt community thing, and he was doing the whole belt reviews and everything, and I knew I follow him on social media and seeing he was going to be a wrestler, and he was doing amazing as a wrestler. And he got signed to TNA. I'm like, holy crap. Somebody I've known for a long time is signed to TNA, and when he won the X-Division title, I was like, there is a God. Somebody you know did this. And he didn't have a good run with the X-Division title. They didn't really let him proceed as the character he should be with the X-Division title. And I feel like he should have won it again to show that he can live up to the hype that he is.
Yeah.
And, they had matches here, matches there, and they get to the main event. Kenny Omega retains the Impact title. And then here comes Jay White.
Ooh.
The never openweight champion and everything else. And he just stands across from the Elite, but they don't make it a thing to see if they're back together or not. But here comes.
Okay, so this ties into a prediction I'm going to make for AEW at the end. So I'm glad, but yes, I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, Finjuice came back last night as well.
Yeah, I read that.
And David Finlay and Jay White, I have a match coming up here in the States for that never openweight title. So
that's a nice segue. So, but final prediction, then we'll move on to New Japan. I think in a year, Impact and Ring of Honor will switch places where they've historically been. I think Impact will become bigger than Ring of Honor again.
I agree.
All right, New Japan. So this depends on what they do. Because, and I don't remember the guy's name, New Japan is under yet a new president. The other guy was making.
Yeah, talk about New Japan, by the way.
Yep.
No, well, I'll get to my point.
Well, the new guy was making some really not bad decisions, but he was kind of treating the company like it was bigger than it was, at least as far as in the States. I think New Japan, if they want to grow and stay, they need to further these relationships with AEW and with Impact. But the caveat to that is their presence as a company in the U.S. is going to be it's going to have to be de-emphasized. Now, I think they can do some stuff on the West Coast, but I think that's it. I don't think they can, because their goal was to become a major promotion in the United States, and I don't think they can do that. I just don't think they can do that right now.
Well, and I'm not disagreeing with that. They're actually trying to do that right before the pandemic hit.
Right, that's what I'm saying. But then also, they tried it at the worst possible time, because if they still had the Elite in the Bullet Club, I think they had a shot. But they all left and formed a new company.
Well, I mean, they technically still had the Bullet Club.
Yeah, but the Bullet Club is not where it was. It could be, and that's part of my prediction. But
well, the Bullet Club is technically the Tongas and Jay White and everything else.
yeah, I know, but it's not as popular as when Kenny and the Bucks and.
Well, I know. I'm not disagreeing with that one. What was I gonna say? Crap. Like, because they got their what is that called? They got their company out in California, which is
the LA back out where the LA dojo is, and I think it's just New Japan USA.
Yes, that's it. Because a guy I follow on TikTok, coincidentally enough, his name's Barrett Brown. He works for them and everything. So that's how I know about them being out there on the West Coast and everything. Now, and I think if like people like if Osprey and everything, like if Pandemic didn't hurt, and somebody like Osprey, who was especially champion at that time too, was the champion, I think they could have made a little bit bigger stride here in the States.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is nobody knew who. Everybody knows Osprey because of the overseas, but doesn't really know in the States. And I think Japan needs to get a stronger TV standpoint. Somebody here, maybe I could be wrong, to get recognized over here. Like they got Access TV, okay, and I've seen them on that, but they're like way behind though when they're showing their stuff on there.
Your mic is doing that thing again.
My mic's doing that thing again. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but it sounds funny.
Can you hear me? Everything good?
Yeah, it still sounds funky.
I don't want to actually pull it. Uh-oh.
Okay, there you go. Yep, you're back.
Okay, sorry. Like I was saying, New Japan's got their thing on Access TV, but they're like way far behind when they're showing it on there because, like, they're showing like the G1, like they're showing stuff from the Tokyo Dome that they show it on January 4th. 3 months later,
yeah,
like we were finally just now seeing it. It's like, okay, you're showing stuff.
That I actually get because I think what they're trying to do is get people to sign up for New Japan World, and New Japan World is absolutely worth it.
I'm assuming you have that.
Oh yeah, it's not even $10 a month. It's because the exchange rate, it's anywhere between like $9 and $10 a month, and it's absolutely worth every single penny. And the only reason I got New Japan World, I'll never forget it. I signed up because I wanted to watch Wrestle Kingdom live the year that I got it, which I believe was 2018. No, it might have even been 2016, 17. Oh, so it totally worked. New Japan. And here's the thing: if Ring of Honor had a stronger product right now, and it was $10 a month, because I almost joined Honor Club back before the Elite left. I almost did. But I ended up not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this ties into what we were talking about with with Will Ospreay and everything, especially now since he's injured and he is no longer the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, which I didn't know they had already crowned the new champion by this point. And I meant to talk to you about that. His name is Shinjiri Itagi, I think it is. Well, he's supposed to defend it against Kota Ibushi at their next big show.
Yeah, and Kota needs to win it desperately.
Do what?
Ibushi needs to win it desperately.
Win it back?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. Because I seen a little listing and everything, and like a listing of every company's world champion. I seen that Shigeri Otaki had won the world title. I'm like, oh, I didn't know they already crowned him yet.
Okay, so I can't hold it back anymore. Here's my prediction.
No,
So,
I was going to get to my prediction too.
oh, okay, go on.
No, I was just stating. I think in the next year, New Japan might go back to where they were before and be a bigger company.
I agree, and I can tell you how New Japan and AEW can become. I'm changing my mind. I'm going to say my prediction till the end, but I'm going to tell you how AEW and New Japan, respectively, can become the number 1 and number 2 company in the world.
Okay.
But I'll save that for the end. So, but I'm with you. I think New Japan is going to recover. They'll get back to where they were.
Yeah.
Especially if they do what I'm going to say. So please, if you're listening, listen to me. And wrestling fans out there, if you agree or disagree with me, be sure to let us know in the comments. Next, I got WWE, which I know is going to offend some people. But I ranked these in terms of potential growth. FYI.
And I'm not disagreeing on that either with you, because I've said this before and I'll say this again. Some people disagree with me, especially one of my best friends who has listened before, who hasn't listened, who doesn't listen, but he will disagree with me on this because he's a WWE fanboy and not an AEW fanboy. Because he's going to see AEW as a WCW 2.0. That's what a lot of people say.
WCW was beating WWF for 83 weeks, so I'm fine with that.
I know, and he and I had this debate last night about which show of theirs is the number 1 show, like what show TNA, Impact Wrestling, whatever's pay-per-view is their number 1 pay-per-view. He feels like Slammiversary is their number 1 pay-per-view, is their WrestleMania. And I think No Bound for Glory is.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Well, he doesn't. I'm not the type to get an argument with him.
Because here's why I think you're both kind of right, but I think you're more right. I think Slammiversary was supposed to be their WrestleMania, but Bound for Glory was continually better and kind of became their main pay-per-view.
Right, but his point is especially here lately, especially last year with the whole pandemic, all their big surprises has been at Slammiversary and everything else. So it's changed over the years. To me, like at the beginning, it was, but it has changed over the years. But even then,
right. Yeah. So in terms of WWE, so just 2 points that I want to kind of put in everybody's head before we go deep into this. There are still a lot of rumors that WWE might be selling. So that's going to definitely affect. Now, if they said, like, and I don't know who the buyer would be, but let's assume, since they're on Peacock, let's assume that
NBC.
Yeah. Let's assume they get bought by NBC. At that point, I don't think as a company they will go, they certainly won't go under. I think they'll change so much that they will almost be outside of pro wrestling because they're almost already there. Because I always classify the biggest difference between companies like AEW and WWE is AEW is a wrestling company. WWE is an entertainment company that has wrestling in it.
Right. And I think that if NBC buys them out and everything else, then they will get treated like WCW did.
Yes. In all the bad ways.
And the reason being is because it'll be like WCW. Because when WCW, even though Eric Bischoff, who's a wrestling personality, was running WCW, Ted Turner was still running it. Ted Turner was the owner. Okay. So that means it was a TV perspective, TV global station that was running WCW. And Bischoff had to abide by their rules, plus he was also doing what he wanted to do. Now, being said, with right now, WWE is just listening to Vince McMahon. He has no higher ups to listen to but the board of directors. Now, when they get sold, then WWE will have to to the same perspective of what WCW did and the same standards. And you're right, a lot of things will change. Yeah, for how the company will be perceived as and what stuff that they can do and what they cannot do.
Right. And then I also wanted to point out that Monday Night Raw had its lowest ratings in history, in the history of the program in June of this year.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know why. Even WWE, because like I'm a WWE fan at the end of the day. It's just the product sucks right now. And it's not the talent. It's not that they've arguably got one of the best rosters that they've ever had. There's just something about it that is just so uninteresting. It's like matches blend together and you get the same matches over and over again on TV. This is going to give people who love Jim Cornette's opinion a conniption fit. It's too slow. Like there's a lot of just nothing happening, which is astonishing for like 3 and 5 minute matches.
And I am on your side with that because I told you this. I watched the Monday Night Raw here recently, and I was halfway through it, and I knew what the main event was. It was the New Day against the Hurt Business, Bobby and MVP. I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah, like we've seen this.
I'm done. Like I know what the outcome's going to be and everything else. Like, it's like, why?
As opposed to AEW, who I think it was last week, not this week, but the previous week. You know, everybody knew that Tommy End had been released, but we had no idea he was going to show up in AEW that week. We figured he was coming to AEW, but there was some technicality in his contract that let him out in 30 days instead of 90.
Right.
And they even, like, this was genius. They did the bit where they turned the lights out, but everybody knows what that means. Like when the lights come out.
Right.
So everything goes dark and then they come on and then nobody's there. So like we know it wasn't actually a power outage, but I'm like, okay, they're teasing something, but we have no idea who it's going to be. And then they do it again, and then it's Malachi Black, Tommy End, whoever. And that was a legitimate surprise.
Which to me, it's funny because of the whole 30-day thing instead of the 90-day thing. It's funny because it's like WWE doesn't overlook anything, and they somehow overlook that. It's like, yeah, about that.
Yeah, funny story. You can actually go anywhere you want now. Now, let's look at the other side. If WWE doesn't sell, if they do now what they did in response to WCW, it can be so much better. Because AEW, if they adapt their programming, which they probably won't because they're so big now that WWE can pretty much do whatever they want and they will still be fine.
They will. It's just
because unfortunately AEW is just not a big enough threat. I almost said legitimate, but they are a legitimate threat. But again, stick around for my prediction, and I will tell you how AEW can become a major threat and possibly eclipse WWE if they do these things. But WWE could change its style. And then the other thing is they've got to become a friendlier place for the talent. Because I don't, honestly, if you have name value in pro wrestling right now, I don't know why you would go to WWE. I just don't. Especially if they start the live event schedule up again like it historically has been.
they just started the live events. Yeah, 2 days ago with SmackDown.
Yeah. Well, Kenny, the Bucks, and Cody proved that you can make the same, if not more, on the independents if you're creative and driven, and arguably have a lighter schedule.
And that's what a lot of WWE wrestlers were trying to do, and WWE said nope.
Exactly. It's not a friendly place for talent compared to other. And then plus the fact too, AEW, you have the advantage of being an actual employee there as opposed to a contractor, which we can get into all that later if people want to on another episode.
Right.
But there's a lot to be said. So like even if let's say you've got two contracts, which arguably they're the same monetarily, but just for sake of the example, let's say that you've got name value from the independents and you're entertaining offers from WWE and AEW respectively. WWE is offering you, I don't know what their base pay is. Like let's say that they're offering somebody $500,000 annually.
Right.
And then let's say just for shits and giggles that AEW is offering $250,000 annually, but that contract comes with health insurance. You work on TV 1 day a week, plus ancillary filming stuff, but you have a much lighter schedule. You are allowed to keep your outside, streaming and money-making ventures. It's my understanding that you have a larger stake in your merchandising with AEW as opposed to WWE.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say, because some AEW wrestlers have agreements that allow them to wrestle independents.
Right.
So, I don't know about you, but I'd probably be more inclined, if I had the name value, I'd probably be more inclined to take the AEW. Oh, and you have health insurance through AEW.
Well, you already said that, but yes.
Oh, did I? I thought I skipped that. Yeah. So I'd probably be more inclined to take the AEW offer. Just me personally. But
I think
in reality, AEW would probably be offering $500,000 a year as well. So to me, it would be a no-brainer.
Right.
The only drawback is you don't get as much exposure, especially when you consider outside the wrestling world. You don't get as much mainstream exposure from AEW, but that could change very, very soon.
Well, let's draw back to that and everything. And let's make our. I'll go with my prediction. I'll tell my thought on that when we go to AEW. Getting WWE, I'll go with my prediction. I'm not disagreeing with all of this at all. WWE though, I think depending on what happens within this next year with all the fans touring, everything is what's going to change. Okay, especially by the time they get to WrestleMania next year, which will be full fans.
Yeah,
not just half fans and half cardboard cutout. It's going to be all fans. So, I think by this time next year, they're still going to be in the same spot, maybe higher than AEW, maybe below AEW, maybe tied with AEW. Don't know for sure. We have to wait to see what happens in this next year. WWE will still be around by this time next year, though. We know that for a fact.
Oh, yeah. It's not going anywhere.
They're not going anywhere unless something bad happens and they have to shut down. WWE is going to be here at this time. Okay. And would you agree with that same prediction as well?
Yeah. However, I honestly think that WWE is going to be sold to probably NBC. But I think that they're certainly going to be around, and I think they're still going to be in that number one spot.
Well, I also heard Disney too about buying them, but I don't think. I hope.
Yeah.
Right. But getting to AEW, getting back to what you said on that stuff. I did not.
Notes.
Huh?
That's just my notes.
Okay. With what you're talking about right there, with the whole touring schedule and everything and all the things, Ethan Page, who is, I've liked Ethan Page and everything else, and they do the independents and everything. Because hell, even Ethan Page, when he was at TNA as one of the tag team champions, he was also working independents and everything else. And he works AEW. He's still doing independents. So it's like, because when AEW was doing their little thing with Daly's Place, they would do their 3 days worth of tapings, like do everything from Monday for Dark, Elevation, Dark, and then do Dynamite. Then he had the rest of the week to do whatever, and he'd go do Independence or whatever to make his income, because wrestling is his income right now. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not disagreeing with you on that. Now, I'll go ahead and make my prediction right now for AEW. AEW is going to be where it's at right now, or even bigger by this point next year.
Oh yeah, no doubt. AEW, and honestly, they just need to keep doing what they're doing. But I'm gonna put on my my future glasses to look into the future here.
Okay.
All right. So
Did you
if
get a DeLorean to go to the future and not tell me?
we're not going to talk about that on the podcast. So if AEW and New Japan follow this plan, they can and will eclipse WWE, especially with WWE being in the state that it's in right now. So here's what needs to happen. And they've kind of already set this up. So it's got to be Kenny Omega and Hangman Page at All Out.
Which is going to happen.
Yeah. Page wins the title from Kenny.
Yes.
Also, because of the event that they've set up for Fyter Fest Night 2 with Dark Order and Hangman versus the Elite, basically, Dark Order wins the AEW tag titles from the Bucks.
Yes.
So the Elite goes into and by the way, this is a storyline that'll take about a year to do. The Elite goes into a downward spiral, and I predict Kenny would also lose his other world titles.
Oh,
so
he's going to lose. He's going to lose to Andrade.
Yeah, agreed. So Kenny's going to lose all of his titles, and the Bucks are going to lose their titles, and maybe even the Good Brothers will lose their titles. But basically, the Elite is left with nothing. So, but then they remember, hey, AEW has a working relationship with New Japan, and we need somewhere. And they kind of already touched on this. It's like, hey, remember how we were in Japan and we were on top of the world? Maybe we need to be like that now. Well, all of a sudden, the forbidden door is open. So they think maybe we go back over and take back over Bullet Club. I don't know how they would do this in a long-term story, but you mentioned Jay White showed up to the Impact pay-per-view, and they kind of had a look like, are we for or against? We don't know. So long story short, Kenny, the Bucks, and the Good Brothers end up back in the Bullet Club. Now, this is where things get interesting. Kenny wins the IWGP Heavyweight Championship again. Now, I'm not sure if I'd prefer it if he won it from Ibushi or if they save that match for a later date.
The Golden Lovers.
Well, no, but this time, see, we've gone through another Kenny change.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like you said, Kenny and the Ibushi, and I think of the Golden Lovers. That's what I think of.
Right, exactly. But think about this for just 1 second. So we all know that New Japan suffered when the Elite left. All of a sudden, the Elite is now featured again on New Japan programming. Not every time, but they're there. So there's an incentive to watch. You also have the addition of, so you have Kenny Omega, who is the IWGP Heavyweight Champion, who is on AEW with this championship. And he starts saying stuff like, hey, you know what? It doesn't matter that I lost the AEW championship because this is the real belt. This is the one that actually matters. This championship is new. It doesn't mean anything. Been there, done that. I had it. You can have it, Paige, whatever. And it's important that Paige does not rejoin the Bullet Club. Paige has to stay with the Dark Order.
Okay.
So you've got Bullet Club that now has a presence in New Japan. It has a presence in AEW. It has a presence in Impact, and arguably the NWA and AAA because they have working relationships with all these promotions. So the key is to build Bullet Club back up to where it was and have it be represented in all of these brands.
Okay.
Think back to how popular it was when Bullet Club was on top of the world, like back, I'd say 2016 to 2018. There were legitimate whispers of New Japan really being kind of, I'd say they were a strong number 2. to WWE. Now, that was before WWE started really going downhill. And now you have AEW, which has weekly television in the United States that competes with WWE. Not directly on the same day, but it's a competitor.
Right.
Thoughts?
I see one flaw in this whole problem.
What's the flaw?
How is Kenny allowed to be back in Japan when he's not allowed to be back there?
Why is he not allowed to be back there?
I read reports that they don't want him back there.
Well, I know that would have to change, but I think it would be in New Japan's interest to change that. They'd have to let him do it, obviously, but
that's what I mean. I'm not disagreeing with any of this at all. You got to look at that. I'm not disagreeing with any of this. My thing is, like I just said, Kenny Omega being allowed to come back to New Japan.
Here's the thing, though, for all this to work, and New Japan needs to do this anyway, regardless if they go with the storyline or not. New Japan needs to get over themselves when it comes to, because here's the thing, and this is what New Japan fails to realize on every turn. The way they do their contracts is dumb, because everybody's contracts come due at the same time. Now, with the Japanese players, which they found this out with Nakamura, there's just this assumption that especially the Japanese guys just won't leave, which is why it's never hurt them before. But everybody's contracts coming due at the same time is a really, 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 really bad way to do business, and they still haven't learned. Because it happened when the Good Brothers, Styles, and Nakamura left, and then they didn't change the way they did business, and then everyone in the Elite left at the same time, with the exception of Marty Scurll, who he still left. He just ended up going with Ring of Honor full-time.
Right.
They've got to get over themselves, because I guess there are some people that say that they're insulted that Kenny and the Bucks left the way they did. I disagree, because they tried to negotiate. And, and I don't think it's controversial to say that New Japan got, in large part, as big as they did because of what Bullet Club was doing, and a large part of what Bullet Club was doing was thanks to things like being the Elite and the merchandise deal that was brokered by the Bucks into Hot Topic, and those 3 to 5 guys were instrumental in growing Bullet Club and New Japan. And
New Japan was famous again because of the Bullet Club.
Yes, 100%. So why would you not swallow your pride, get over it, and then just start printing money again?
Because New Japan is like Cornette and old school and everything else, so won't get into new school.
Yeah, okay, get over it. Sorry, but you'd have to get over it. And I think a deal can be reached, because again, New Japan is represented on AEW television.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just stating in facts.
Oh, I know, but I think that can change, especially since, again, there's a new president in charge now. It's not the same guy.
Well, then they need to do something then.
That's what I think they should do, and I predict that they might do that, because I see the seeds of that happening. Because I'm looking at it like this. If Kenny Omega loses that title and he doesn't do something like that, I mean, what's he going to do? He's just going to flounder around in AEW.
Right.
So I think they need to do something like that, and I think it might already be in the works, actually.
All right. I'll agree with that.
That's my highly controversial prediction for AEW next year.
Well, I have something controversial happening right now.
All right.
And something that got announced for Raw tomorrow night is somebody's coming back to WWE.
Ooh.
Goldberg.
Oh yeah, we knew that.
I gave my predictions on this before. I'll say it again. Goldberg? No.
I agree.
And they're only doing it because it's SummerSlam.
I know. And who cares? Like, at this point, we've seen it.
But here's my thing. They've pretty much given away WWE has that who's going to win their matches tonight and Money in the Bank for the titles. They've pretty much given away that Roman Reigns is going to beat Edge. Because it's supposed to be Roman Cena at SummerSlam.
Yep.
It's supposed to be Bobby and Goldberg at SummerSlam for their belt. So
as usual, the WWE pay-per-view is going to be inconsequential.
And they've already stated that next year WrestleMania, what the main event's going to be. Yep. It's going to be Brock Roman.
It's going to be Brock Roman?
Yes.
Okay, because your mic's doing that weird thing again, but
The Rock versus Roman Reigns is supposed to be WrestleMania next year.
Oh, The Rock versus Roman Reigns.
Yes.
Okay.
It's gonna be who is the true tribal chief. And everybody knows Jimmy Uso just got in trouble. Right? Yep. Well, they're predicting if it's going to be a singles match or a tag match.
Gotta hope it's at least a singles match.
Well, it would be if the only reason why they say a tag because The Rock does movies and yada yada. And the last time he wrestled, he got hurt.
Maybe.
When he wrestled The Rock. When he wrestled Cena, he got hurt. He hurt his ribs. So he couldn't really do movies for a bit.
Yeah.
Well, the tag match would be Rock and an Uso against Roman and an Uso.
Okay. Well, anyway.
So let's get on to the good, exciting, important news that you got for us.
The exciting announcements. Where do we want to start?
You know about all this. I do not.
You said you had an announcement.
Oh, no, that was my announcement.
Oh, that was your announcement. Okay, well, yes. You do kind of have an announcement because who are you going to be meeting on July 30th?
Oh, yes. July 30th, I am going to be meeting the great and wonderful Danhausen. So, in Danhausen, I will be meeting in Indianapolis, Indiana, at the great and wonderful Toy Pit. He is there. If all my listeners want to be there as well, that do listen to us here in Indiana, want to meet up. Danhausen will be there from 6 to 8 p.m. It is free to get in. He will be having merch there with him to sell and everything. The listing is on Facebook for Toy Pit and Danhausen together. They are kind of listing of different items that they are selling, different prices and everything else. If you do want to get a picture with them, bring your phones and get pictures with them as well. I will be there. So if you want to meet up with me, we're the Down the Middle podcast t-shirts.
Yeah, offer Danhausen one.
That would be I will try on that one.
Hey, I'm shameless. I will. Hey, if we can at some point get him to say Down the Middle Hausen, I'll take it.
That's going to be my point, is to try to get him to do that.
Awesome. And then, so 2 announcements for the podcast. One, when Ben won his belt, and I'm not going to give away details yet because we don't know when, but he knows what I'm talking about. We had a very chance meeting at this random arcade in Shelbyville, Indiana. And we have a very cool guest who has agreed to come on the podcast. We don't know exactly when, but we know it's going to happen. We will announce it because it's a big one. It's going to be a big controversial one. And then the other announcement.
Sorry.
No, what did you say?
Controversial creates cash. There's a reason for that one.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a hint. There's a controversy creates cash. So the other big announcement is yours truly, and you might be going. I don't know if you might be going. I don't know if you've gotten your tickets yet, but I will be at both AEW Dynamite and AEW Rampage on All Out weekend. I tried to get All Out tickets, but there was only one left, and it was like $2,000, and it wasn't even that good of a seat. So yeah, we're not going to be at. I'm not going to be at All Out, but I will be at Dynamite and Rampage, and I will be wearing my blue Down the Middle podcast t-shirt. I will be very easy to spot. I specifically ordered blue for a reason because everyone's going to be wearing black.
Do you have the shirts? Do you have your shirt on yet?
Not yet. They will be arriving next week, I think on Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah, so you'll get yours in time.
Okay, no, I was just curious about.
Yeah, no, I messed up when I ordered the samples. I should have gone with the expedited shipping, but I went with the normal, and it booked out another week. But it's confirmed. We should have them on Wednesday.
Oh, ours will be in on Wednesday.
Yep.
Okay.
So probably, hopefully, if it arrives early enough, I'll be able to get it down to you on Wednesday when I come down to do average intelligence.
Okay. Speaking of shirts and everything else, we still have our contest.
Yep, we're still having our contest. Whoever gets us the most subscribers by the end of July gets a free item from our merchandise store. And yes, that does include the hoodies. And I already regret that because I know we're probably going to do a hoodie. But I still want a girl to win the contest so we can sell one girl's t-shirt.
Yeah, but I've talked to a lot of people about this stuff, and especially girls, and they even said, "Yeah, I want to." I'm like, I get it, especially because of winter and everything. I get it coming up. So.
Yeah, we're gonna end up selling a hoodie, I'm sure. But well, I think that was everything, buddy. Hope everybody enjoyed it. We will see you in 2 weeks, and we might see you in Indy meeting Danhausen, or we might see you in Chicago for the AEW shows. I'll be wearing, like I said, I'll be wearing the shirt both times. Feel free to come up, say hi. It'll be fun.
Yes, same thing. But yes, by the time this episode will be in August. It'll be August 1st. So yes, by that point I'll be then as myself. And if my listeners, if they want to come, like I said, come and meet, come forward. I will be there hopefully the whole time. So go ahead, come on out, meet Danhausen, meet, and go from there. So.
All right, everybody. Hope you enjoyed. We will see you in 2 weeks.